Hello, this is Douglas Robinson. I am a solutions consultant with Beyond 20, and in this video, in response to a request from one of our viewers, we will be demonstrating how to make a formatting change within the Cherwell report writer. And I'll go ahead and explain what that change is going to be in one moment. So first, I'm going to create a new incident. And on this incident, I have added two fields onto the default form: a currency field and a non-currency numeric field. And we're going to go over what we can do to change the way that these two fields display in the Cherwell Report Writer tool. Now, my report writer is going to need to run on a record that actually exists in the system, so I can't run my report against a new record. So I'm going to fill out all of my required fields for this incident. And then I'm going to save it. So now that I have this incident submitted, I'm going to enter a value into the currency and non-currency fields that I've added to my screen. Then I'm going to save the record again. Then I'm going to open the report manager. Now, I already have a report for this. If I run this report against the current record, we can see how these two fields will display in the report. Now, by default, they show up as just standard numeric fields. If you have a report and you want to change the way they display within the report, then you can do so within the Design Report dialog. Bear with me, all of my windows are opening on the other screen, so if I open something and it looks like nothing happened, wait one moment while I drag it over. So once you have the report designer open, you'll click on the field that you want to make a change to, and up at the top right corner of the field, you're going to see a little bracket, almost an angle bracket icon. If you click on that, you'll see a flyout with some common configuration changes that you can make to that label or field or other object on the report. And we're going to go to this section here for format string and click this ellipsis. This will bring up a format string editor dialog. And if you need to make some changes as far as currency format, you can do so using the options here, or you could also display a custom format string for your currency. You also have some other formatting options, such as date and time. You can choose one of many different date and time format values if you're working with a date and time field, or many different numeric formats, as well as various different percent options. There are a couple of special formatting options that you can use, and this would be just like the format field that you'd have on a field properties screen if you decided to give it a custom format, where you can decide, hey, I'm going to have parentheses around this and then enter in my numbers here, and then have other static values around the numbers in the field. Or you can have a general format with a prefix or suffix of text that goes either before or after the value that's displayed. So if you wanted to, you could actually put some text around a value that's shown in your report, or you could format it a special way. Now that's just one of the options that we have in this flyout for tasks for the given object on the form. So this is for a label. If you had other objects like a chart or maybe a line or a grid, some other items here, maybe a picture, you have other configuration items that show up here that you can change. Of course, all of these options are going to be available in the properties screen, but they're included in this little flyout so that you have easy access to them as you're working through the report designer. Some other convenient options that you can configure here are formatting rules, in which you can configure a rule sheet for a different style and rule options here. I'm not going to cover that one in depth within this video, but it is there for you, as well as a summary option. Now, summary options for a label are pretty interesting. If you end up adding a group summary band or another type of band such as maybe a relationship band or other bands in this editor, then you can go into your summary options and you can decide that you want this label to appear as a sum of the bound field on all of the items in that band. So if instead of the detail band I had a summary of all of the records in the current group, then I could have a summary that had a sum or an average or a count of a given field in that band. And you can do this for relationships or any other band in the report writer where you're going to have more than one record shown. So here are all the other options that you have for summary functions. You can also apply a format string to these with the same format string editor. And then at the bottom of this, you have the option to choose which summary running you're using. So you can do a group summary, which would be an actual band on the report, such as a group of related items or other items, or you can do a page summary, which is all of the items on the current page, or a report summary, which is all of the items in the report. You also have an option to ignore null values when you're using the summary editor. Of course, you can also change the angle of an item that's displayed on the report. I don't have a specific use case for why you would need to, but it is an option there. And then you can change the data binding. So the data binding for a label or other field is the Cherwell field that it's bound to. And this can be either a Cherwell field from your parent business object such as incident, or it can be a calculated field that you pass into the report. So if I exit out of here, I'm going to click no as far as changes go, and I edit the report properties and add a calculated field. I get the option to include an expression, and it's a normal Cherwell expression, but it shows up special in the report. So if I go and edit this report, it adds my calculated value as a field on the incident business object in the report writer tool. So if I scroll down through here, I'll find my test calculated value in this list. And there it is. So that's something interesting. So if you needed to, you could also modify your label that you've added to a report. You know, if you just dragged it from the right side from the field list, you could go into the data binding for it, and you could set it to any of the existing values on your incident or to a calculated value that you had passed in from outside of the report writer tool. You also have the option of picking either relationships from the parent record that you're running this from, if there's just one record, or from any of the records that you're running against. So if you choose an item from this approval table up at the top, it's going to show you values from the very first approval that you see, or that the report writer runs against. But if you choose values from incident and then incident links approvals, or I believe incident owns approvals is the relationship there, then you're going to have values that change for every record in that relationship for every incident that the report writer passes against. So if there's two copies of these relationships, that would be the difference between them. Is one of them is going to be the first one that the report writer runs against, and the other one is going to be for each record in the group if you're running against a group of records. You also have options to change how the width is handled for labels, so you can set it to automatically grow or shrink as far as handling the width. You can tell, or you can specify that a label in the report writer tool is multi-line, so that if it grows or if the text extends past the size of the label, it will move down to the next line. And you also have the option for word wrap, which allows you to do the same thing. So word wrap will automatically move you down to the next line. Multi-line allows you to have a value in this label that actually has line breaks. And then if you don't want to bind to data, you can actually just specify text that'll appear on the label instead. So a good example of this would be where you have a normal label instead of a label that's bound, and you just have text on it. So we'll say this is our currency field. We're not bound to a field in our data set. So that would be the difference between our column header bands and our detail bands. One other key note, if you're working with reports, if you ever add a band by saying, insert a band. Let's add a group header or other type of band. If you were to add a field to this band, it displays very differently. So the last thing that I wanted to cover in our little miniature segment on reports here is how you can correct this, because you're probably, if you're adding this to this report, or if you're adding a band to a report, you probably want it to follow the style of the other bands. And the way that you can do that is by going down into the properties grid at the bottom right and look for a section titled Styles. Now your new band is not going to have a style, but if you go to an existing band and bring up Styles, you'll see what styles are being used. So for detail bands, you have a couple of different ones. There's a style, and then there's an even and odd style that you can apply as well. For other types of bands, you may only have one. So the column headers have a column header style from this drop-down. And if you want to match that, then you would go to your new band, and under Style, you would select Column Header Style. And then your new field that you had applied here would match the style of the column header grid. Or you could make it match the detail band. So our detail band for the default Cherwell Report Writer theme is Row Data Style. And here we will change the column header style to Row Data Style. And then we match the format of the band at the bottom. If you have any other questions about reports or anything else that you'd like us to cover on our YouTube channel regarding Cherwell or tools that Cherwell integrates with, feel free to reach out to us. You can find us on Twitter. You can also leave any questions, comments, and concerns in the comments section below, and feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/beyond20LLC.